Welcome to the wonderful world of wine, exploring all things wine with you. We are your hosts, Kim Simone and Mark Lenzi, and you can find us on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the wonderful world of wine. Every week, Mark and I discuss trending topics in the wine world and interview interesting people who have beverage backgrounds and are doing very interesting things in the world that we want to be paying attention to. And this week's guest is Neil Rogers. How are you, Neil?
I am fantastic. How are you, Kim?
I am great. And Mark, what about yourself?
Everything is great. It's great
Excellent.
to have you on the show, Neil. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for having me. This is wonderful.
So Neil is an author, a speaker, a hospitality expert, and someone who got his start behind the bar and has taken some of those experiences in restaurants and in hospitality and has taken those skills and moved them into sales training. Is that correct?
Well, yes, it's how I built my sales career. And then, it's part of what we teach.
And you have a book out that we wanted to tell our listeners about. It's called BarTips, Everything I Needed to Know in Sales I Learned Behind the Bar. What a great name for a book.
Yeah, it's one of those books. When I first saw it, Neil, I'm thinking, okay, BarTips. There's going to be some great stories in here. I'm going to ask him all these questions about his wine experience. But then you took it to a totally different direction. I loved how you started early in the book, quoting Anthony Bourdain saying, knowledge from experience can't duplicate the classroom.
No.
The real premise of the book. And I thought that was a great way to start to build what is going on here. The things you learn behind the bar that you can take into the business world. Today, I have a bunch of questions I kind of formulated. I'm hoping we can help our listeners who are in the sales industry or in the wine industry or educating or just speaking, who can take tips from your book. But can you just tell us the basis of that quote and what led to the book?
Oh, so it was a COVID project, right? We're all trying to keep ourselves from losing our minds, right? A friend of mine thought it'd be a good idea if I write a book, and he had just written one, and he just got off a life-saving surgery. And so I said, what am I going to write on? And I really didn't know, but I had done some little ditties or little short stories, if you want to call them that, about experiences that I had at a bar that I worked at in Whitehorse Beach in Plymouth, Massachusetts, called the Full Sail. We just recently had a party for one of the guys that we worked with. It was his birthday, and all these emotions came back because it was 40 some odd years ago at that point. I think it was somewhere around that high 30s, if not 40, when we had the party, and brought us right back there. So I had that piece. I had another piece about, again, Whitehorse Beach, growing up there, and I also had some stuff about growing up and the challenges I had getting started. Daughter had been honored from the local Chamber of Commerce here as one of the people to look at under 30 chamber. They've got an award for everything. The guy who brought Five Guys Burgers to New Hampshire was the keynote. He gave his speech, gave a great speech, very simple, no big words, just my style. Love the guy. And he talked about how he operated his restaurants. And when he talked about pre-meal, and for those of us who have been in the hospitality business, that's the little speech you get before that you go on your shift, and it's, what's 86th and what's the special and how did we do last year? And then a little bit of a rah-rah speech. And his rah-rah speech was, we're not in the burger business. We're not in the fry business. We're not in the soda business. We're not in the shake business. We're in the hospitality business. And I looked at my wife, and for a point of context, I met her. She was a food waitress, and I was a bartender at a place called Tia's in Boston. And so I looked at her and I said, I've never left the bar business. I've been bartending on the road for 30 plus years. So that's kind of the premise, how it all came about. I also, from that meeting, I decided to do some research on how other companies and other small businesses used hospitality and engagement with their clients. That fun things like gumballs at the back of the store at a men's store in Atlanta. Certainly all the things that places like Starbucks do to engage their customers. I started outlining the concepts of what I thought would be good things that were analogous for road sales with bartending. And then I started interviewing people. I interviewed old people that I worked with, owners of restaurants and bars that I worked at. And we came up with the quote unquote bar tips. And there's about 12 of them in there. And then we talk about some other concepts.
I love this idea of hospitality not just in the food and beverage sector. And this seems to be a thread that runs through so much of what you talk about and what you write about. This concept of doing right for other people and making those connections with others outside of this area of what we traditionally think of as hospitality, which is restaurants and catering and talking about food and talking about beverage. And I really love that warmth that you seem to bring to all of these things that you're doing, all kind of based on that concept of hospitality and just like being good to each other. And even if you're in a role that doesn't necessarily involve food or beverage, you're still needing to make those connections with other people and bringing that warmth. And I really think that that is a nice way of approaching business.
Hey, go to Trader Joe's.
Oh my God, yes.
Right?
When they give you flowers when you're having a bad day, absolutely. That
you
is
walk in,
totally.
everybody's there to help you. The registers are open. How was your day? Did you find everything you needed? You didn't? Let me go run for it. Let me send my friend to run for it. And then you go to other stores and it's not so.
Yep. That's an excellent example of all these things that you talk about in your book.
I mean, it's simple stuff. I just gave a talk last week. So talking about a crossover, I spoke at Berkeley School of Music, and it was to the kids who were in the business of songwriting. So these are songwriters. They want to go make a living writing songs. It was close to graduation. I said, okay, show of hands. How many people are graduating? When do you graduate? Sunday? Great. You know what you are on Monday? A salesperson. And we talked about sales. We really talked about it as relationships. I mean, we've got customers in this current business we're in right now for 27 years. Treating them right and being nice to them, doing what you say you're going to do, and simple stuff. Nobody's splitting the atom in this gig. I'll promise you that.
One of the things Kim and I always talk about in the wine industry is it's about having fun. It's about making it fun to get people to enjoy what you're doing. And you say in the book, don't take yourself or business too seriously. And it kind of led me to a hospitality thing. You also had a quote said, focus on what gives you joy. And I like that because we've interviewed people in the wine world who that's the whole thing. This is fun, have fun when you're out there selling or speaking. Can you tell us more about like hospitality? How does that lead to like a better environment or experience in the business world as far as selling?
Well, I mean, take all from A to Z, right? How are you greeting people? What do your emails look like? Are you writing emails like they're texts? Include a pleasantry. How about an opener? How about a close? Simple things like that. Are you organized? And how are you presenting to your customers? Don't waste their time. It's a respect that you have. You show them respect by being organized, by understanding what they may need, right? And then also things like time management. We build everything around time management about being on time. And what's on time, everybody? Everybody in unison? 15 minutes early, right?
Early, yes.
Right? Right? So, and what does that show? Respect for your customer. Now, you guys are in a different gig. They come to you, but still, how are you greeting them as they come through the door? Hey, good afternoon. How are you? So let me give you a scenario I always give. It's when Home Depot came to town. You all remember that, right?
Yeah.
You'd walk in the door. There was a sea of orange aprons ready to help you. Now they hide on you.
Yeah.
Or you get somebody, it's not their department, whatever. Where did that go? So what happens? We go to the local guy. Go to your Obershine guy. Walk in the door. First thing they say, how you doing? What's your project? How can I help you? What a novel idea. We exclusively, and I'm not a big DIY guy, don't get me wrong, but I exclusively go to the small guy because of those reasons. So those are some simple, quick tips that cross the line between hospitality and sales. But also things like, what's your attitude? What's your aptitude? What's your appearance? What are you looking like? Now, I know there's different ways of looking these days, and I get that, but at least go to the top of whatever that is, in my view. Your attitude, you can control it. Have a good attitude. Be positive. And when we talk about positive activity, then we'll talk about how we can do that. And then your aptitude. Are you upgrading? Are you a lifelong learner? Are you learning more about your craft? Are you doing, you're taking courses? You're going to seminars, getting a mentor, as an example. So all those things play in. I think the killer in the whole bunch is taking ownership when a business problem arises. No one knows better than a server how to resolve a simple dispute. The burger didn't come out warm enough. The drink wasn't on time. Whatever it is, they've got to go through the process and resolve that problem. The classic scenario I give with that is a guy when I was at Tia's, and Tia's is, I don't know if you guys have ever been there, but it's a pretty big bar back then. I
Yeah.
think it still does a good job doing business now, but I opened it 43 years ago. Where is it? About 42 years ago. This guy, Dennis Mayer, who was working with us, and you may read this in the book, Mark, and he was one of those guys like, what are you working with us? You're too smart for this. Woman came to the bar. She ordered a vodka martini extra dry. Okay. So Dennis makes the vodka martini extra dry, just like he always does. She says, that's not dry enough. So he walks by me and says, I've been doing this 15 years. I haven't put a drop of vermouth in the martini yet. But he grabbed the mixing glass, poured the drink again, iced the up glass, poured it in, did the twist, all 9 yards. So it's just straight vodka. She took a sip out of it. She goes, yep, that's the one. Same drink. The point of the matter is that what did we learn here? You can get in the beef. He could have told her the story he just told me. Hey, lady, I've never put a drop of, no. The place lost 2 ounces of booze or so. We get a happy customer and nobody is the wiser around her. And it just deflates it. Like this quote from that chapter, being right is overrated. And the customer is always right. Can't be unreasonable, but you got to start from the point of always right.
Yeah. And I like that part in the book when you mentioned that story, because one of my questions was about that. Customer is always right. We hear that, Kim hears heard it in the service industry, in the education industry. I hear it in retail. It's really an art to hold your tongue at times when the customer is actually wrong. You know it, but you have to handle it properly, like your story. And it's just one of those things with experience and patience, you have to learn and keep saying that to yourself. The customer's always right. It's a tough thing.
And there's no better place on the planet from the age of 16 to 25 than working as a server.
Yeah.
Just get those chops. So many people I've talked about when I talk about the book, we hire people from the hospitality business.
Yeah.
Because
you talked about that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because you said people are looking to hire people that worked in hospitality because they know they can deal with situations like that and can deal with customers and are trained to listen, right? I mean,
correct.
That's a big thing.
2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion, at the very least. One quote that I did not put in the book, and it was because it's a buddy of mine that I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I used it, but his dad actually was the one who started it. He was an attorney, and he used to tell this to his clients: never avoid an opportunity to keep your mouth shut.
It's good advice.
Right? Yeah.
It's great advice, because
I still need to learn that from time to time.
You can practice it, Kim. We have ways of doing that. And the best way I found to do it, I am a counter sitter, a bar sitter. I prefer never to sit at a table. And mainly because, especially if I'm going down to breakfast by myself, my wife didn't want to come. I sit on the counter because invariably people who sit at counters want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
You hear some story. And what I do is I practice that. I ask them a question. I shut up. Just let it flow.
Just listen.
Yeah. What? Oh, that was your child? What does she do? What school does she go? Oh, marvelous. And just keep the conversation going. So
you mentioned also in the book, Neil, about the importance of the greeting. You just talked about it briefly. You had something, the 10-5 rule. And I was wondering if you could tell our listeners your 10-5 rule with a greeting, because I thought it was really good advice.
I'd like to lay claim to that. However, it's the Ritz-Carlton's. And the Ritz-Carlton says their 10-5 rule is when any guest is within 10 feet of you, you are to acknowledge them with a nod and a smile. If they're within 5, you're to greet them verbally. And it changes the attitude of everybody. I know they did studies at a hospital, I think it was in the Midwest, where the customer satisfaction and the morale of the staff went up dramatically. I mean, if you think about it, and again, the way to practice that, if you got a dog or if you go for walks, say hello to everybody you meet. You're not going to bat 1,000. Somebody's to have their head down, have a bad morning, whatever it is. But by and large, everybody wants to say hello. They all want that greeting. Good morning. How are you? What great weather. Small talk. And then move along. So that's the premise of that. Think about how could Home Depot turn that whole thing around. They would implement that type of program. They need more staff too, but I can't believe they haven't seen a sales slow down because of that, because of how it goes now. But
yeah, I think that's something these bigger companies don't really train the people or focus on with the greeting or even looking at people when you're waiting on them, or it's a lost thing in the retail world, I feel. Not as much hospitality, I think it's still there, but in the retail, I think it's going away, unfortunately.
I think those that get it, and that's where I shop.
True.
Alex Shoe Store here in Nashua, New Hampshire. This was mobbed. It's a shoe store off of Route 3 here. And you know why it's mobbed? They have plenty of staff. They greet you. They ask you, what are you looking for? They take you over there. They give you some ideas. Then they get your size, just as you did as a kid. You get out, they get the Brannick device. Did you know that's the name of it? The fitter, the thing that fits you. It's called the
Did
Brannick.
not know that.
How about that? You know, you get that tidbit today, didn't
There
you?
we go. I had no idea we were talking about sizing you for
Oh,
shoes.
and I walked out with 3 pairs of shoes today, $341. Just
Good service.
and then there's different models I've seen. So I became a fan of Bonobos men's apparel. I think they have some women's apparel too, but they used to sell at Nordstrom's. Their khakis fit me perfectly. I could walk in, I could get my size, walk out. They stopped selling them there, and Bonobos started selling online. But then I was in Minneapolis one day and I walked by and I said, oh my goodness, it's a Bonobo store. So I walked in, 2 guys working there, very attentive. What they had done was they now have a size run of a product, or at least something, of a product that you can get, obviously you can get sized on. And then if you want a different color, if you want whatnot, no problem. They'll order it. You order it there. They ship it to your house. So it's a kind of a hybrid. I thought it was magnificent. They can stock way more stuff or show them way more stuff in a smaller footprint. I mean, who's going to Macy's anymore? Talking about a ghost town.
Yeah, retail has to adapt for sure.
And these guys have. I love their model. And I don't go there a lot, but when I need something, I go there.
All these sort of creative responses to pressures in the market and different ways to make sure that you are hitting that mark of, again, being attentive to the customer, and that turns around and you have these people who are loyally shopping at your store or shopping your brand. And then like yourself, you will talk about what a good job they did. And it's all those aspects. It's a good product, but it's also the good people that are there as well.
We were at the Westin in Sarasota. The front desk people were awesome. The breakfast waitresses, we had two separate ones. Fantastic. We spent a little time at the rooftop bar. I can tell you the names: Sarah, Jose, and Bailey. Justine and Gina were the waitresses. And I did something I very rarely do. I wrote them a nice Google review. And then of course, I tell them all about the book, and they're buying it on the spot. But I give them all my cell phone. I said, once you read it, I want to hear all about what your thoughts are. They were just wonderful, to help out. They helped us out. They were just good servers. They were nice. It doesn't take a lot. I mean, I think that's what people got to remember. I mean, especially in the sales business. I mean, I love working events, trade shows, because you can answer questions. People are interested. It's fun. In some regard, there's my little retail thing that I still might do. And when I was a bartender, the people were the fun. The job was fun. And when working with the people and making them happy, that's kind of how I got my path to go to sales, because I was going nowhere fast at the age of 18, 19, 20 years old. Until at about 19, I got my first bar job, because the drinking age was 18. And that's when I realized that, that drink, the woman liked it, got that immediate feedback. I said, whoa, that felt good. How can I make a good living out of this? I think it's an honorable profession, but it just wasn't for me long term. So I did it for about 10 years or so. And, when I got my first taste of sales, but you're making nothing during the week, you try to build up your territory and get your commissions going. So I was tending 2 nights a weekend at the Boston Sale Off, which is on the back of the book.
You're listening to The Wonderful World of Wine. We are your hosts, Mark Lenzi and Kim Simone, exploring all things wine with you. For more information about Kim, you can go on her website, commonwealthwineschool.com. For more information about myself, you can go to franklinliquors.com. Today, we have a special guest, Neil Rogers. He's the author of BarTips, Everything I Needed to Know in Sales I Learned Behind the Bar. And you can find him on his website, positiveactivity.net. Our program is supported by Franklin Public Radio, and you can find us on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine. So, Neil, you were talking about sales and the salesman, and one of the questions I have for you is, I'm becoming very frustrated with where the salesperson has developed lately. You tell me your thoughts, but I'm thinking maybe it's because of COVID, maybe it's because of technology, but it seems like what I was growing up with in the business world, with the old salesman coming in, seeing you every week, calling you if he wasn't coming in. It seems like it's an easier job to do now with the technology, to email and call as easy as it is. But I'm seeing it go in a totally different direction, where the younger salespeople don't want to even call on you. They don't want to spend the time to email you. Do you think it all changed from COVID or in technology? What's your thoughts on the current salespeople that are out there?
I don't rightly know. I think the people that service our industry, which is the swag business, we've got some pretty good folks. I think if it's the youth, There may be a little of that they haven't quite grasped, that they're in the commission business or bonus business, however they get paid. I mean, they've done sales. At some point in time, if you don't make sales, whether you're paid commission or base or whatever, you're going to lose your job,
Right.
And if you don't have happy customers, nobody sings your praises, and the boss takes you around. I mean, I think it spells doom and gloom. I'm pretty encouraged as a general rule about the people I know at that age group. I mean, they're not salespeople. They're doing other things. I don't know how to answer the question really, because if you're not going to call on customers, what are you doing in the business? I used to love the golf pros, and you go to Florida and they get an attitude. It's like, hold on a second. You're a golf pro. You're in Florida. Everybody comes here to have fun.
Yeah.
Put a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I don't really know how to answer because I don't deal with that on a daily basis. I guess it's the same thing in the hospitality business. I go to places where people are professional, and professional meaning they just treat you well. They're nice and all that. They get to know you a little bit. You don't have to be best pals. And I won't go where the kid's got the hat on backwards and got an attitude and I'm getting tipped no matter what happens. Maybe it's all in how they're compensating their salespeople. That's the only thing I can come up with. I wish I had a magic answer for you. I really don't. I just think that if you go do something else.
Yeah.
If you're not going to go, if you don't want to go call on customers and take care of them.
Do you have any demographics of like ages of people who are reaching out for your book or your talks? Is it more the mid, like what ages would you say are interested in picking up a book like yours to
I walked
out.
It's interesting. I walked out of my music lesson today and there was a kid sitting there waiting to go in, and he commented on my voice. I said, well, that was nice. All right, great. You like my voice? I said, tell me about you. What are you doing? He told me. He stands up. He shakes my hand. He looks me in the eye like, oh my goodness, stay right here. I'll be right back. I told him about speaking it because he wants to be a music teacher. So I just spoke at Berkeley School of Music. I ran out and got him a book and signed it for him. So here you go, kid. Take some of these tips. Go for it. But that kid had it. I knew it right as he stood up. He looked at me. He said once he learned my name, he said my name again. It's like, all right, this kid gets it. Again, I've been fortunate, in our own family here. I've got 3 great kids. All successful, all kind of get it. So I guess they grew up in an environment where we're small business people. We can't be nasty to people. We got to be making sales calls every day, even to this point. But I love to do it. I love working with new people. It's just, I love helping them. So you're going to have that if you're going to be in this gig. So all the kids, just as an example, all the kids at Berkeley, very attentive. We had a fantastic back and forth. And these kids aren't salespeople. They're not business people. They're artists. So they were very interested. They wanted to learn, but they're also spent $80,000 a year to get a music degree. And as far as those people seeking us out, it's all over the place. We really focus a lot on small business.
I wanted to ask you about your positiveactivity.net. You were telling us before we got onto the show about your lectures and your speaking and how you, in addition to your book, kind of bring your message to the wider world. And I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about how you do that.
So Positive Activity is a program that we put together. So it's kind of the sum total of what we've been doing in the last nearly 40 years. Me as a salesperson by myself for about 18, 20 of those. And then my wife and I have been in business together for the last 27. In essence, we've been in business the whole time together because I've always been a manufacturer's rep. And so it's a combination of things that I learned on the road and ways that I learned how to get people's attention and build territories, combined with an attitude adjustment, getting your mindset right. And that's really what Lori talks about. I can do it. I don't do as much justice to her as she does. But it's essentially where you have practices. We control 90% of our happiness. 10% is the stuff we own, the cars, the homes, the whatnot. Everything else we can control and change every day. And it's really about where your mindset is. So we do certain practices. We propose that people do these certain practices. We do them every day. And you may have heard of some of these things from other folks, but we make sure that you do a gratitude practice every day. What am I grateful for? Something good that's happened, 3 things that have happened in the last 24 hours. And that can be anything. It can be the coffee is warm, it's a beautiful morning, and I got my run in, right? But anything. Then we do something that's more intentional recall, where you take something like that and you would go a little deeper into it and experience it yet again. Sit there and listen to your breath for 5 minutes. We don't want to tell them it's meditating, but it's meditating. We say, move your body, do something to get up somewhere between 30 minutes a day, move your body. And then random acts of kindness are also big for us. a reach out. And that could be checking on somebody who's having a bad time, someone you haven't heard from in a while. I did that with really a daily, maybe twice a day event for me during COVID. Just again, one of those things, try to keep yourself from going. So that gets you into an area of positivity. That's why it's positive activity. So once you're in that place of positivity, that leads you to open-minded, divergent thinking, solution providing, creativity. You no longer see problems, you see solution. That's like generic part of the program. From there, what are your productivity steps that you want to do in whatever it is you're trying to accomplish? We talk about business development steps that have been tried and true for us, for me, and now Lori for the last 40 some odd years, 30 plus years, whatever it is, I always get the number right, 37 years.
Time's flying, isn't it?
It really is. It's crazy. And so like as an example, those would be the business development step. Who can buy what you sell? Sounds simple, but you can't imagine how many salespeople chase after the avatars that are not their avatars. They can't buy it. They're the wrong person. You have to examine that. You have to do some research. What is the benefit you're going to give them? These are all things I talked to the kids about last week. So you're an artist, you're a songwriter, you're a singer-songwriter. Okay, you're going to have to you're going to have to play out. You have to play out at some bars or restaurants. What's the benefit you're going to bring? The best benefit you can bring them is customers, or at least to make their customers happy. How are you going to go about doing that? And what we really focus on a lot is, who can buy what you sell. You build the list of who can buy, who those people are. And you take the group, those are your friends, your family, your associates, all that, because we need them to know what we're doing because they're good referral sources. Then there's the group you meet. So who are those people you meet at networking events, at restaurants, at bars, at cocktail parties, wherever you're giving your little 20-second commercial. And then last is the group you buy, that's a list buy, and that's the least appealing of the group. And then you have structured campaigns to follow up on each of those. And we propose 7 touches, and at least 3 of those should be intangible media, a card, an envelope with a pen in it, something that's got some dimension to it that is going to get opened. And that's when you make your follow-up call. Once that baby hits, you can track it by USPS, you can track it UPS, all those things. And then you have a shot at breaking through the gazillion emails people get in a day, or the crazy social media stuff they've got to look at. So it's all about getting attention. And then finally, we talk about how you're going to conduct your first meeting. So it's all about the first meeting. And it could be the first meeting with an old customer on a new product, still a first meeting. So we take them through those steps. But I also used it personally. I use it in my music. For years I've sang and I played a little piano, and my vocal teacher said, you got to play and sing. All right, how am I going to do that? Well, I put together a 90-day plan. I got positive. I got creative. I went down and I did that plan for 90 days. And there I was on that stage playing and singing. It's not only good for business, it's good for your personal life as well. And what we say is stick with it for 90 days. The magic number that we pulled out of our hats. But 90 days, you look back after 90 days, you've worked at your network, you've got your process in line. You won't believe where you came from. How did I get all this business? How did I get all these quotes? It's what happens. It's what we talk about getting on a roll. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially all that, like starting with the positivity, and especially that little bit about doing something nice for somebody else. It puts you in such a good mindset when you just do nice little things for other people. You don't have to, just letting that person go ahead of you in traffic, but you made them feel better, and now you kind of feel better too. So yeah, all those little things kind of add up to just having a positive outlook on the world.
Well, Kim, when there was that time, and I know it's rare with you, but the time where you didn't let them go, you didn't feel great about it, did you?
I do live in Massachusetts after
all. I
know.
I'm in New Hampshire, but I'm right at my back window I'm staring out the window. It's Massachusetts right there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I liked how you mentioned the old school techniques, like the handwritten things. I use that a lot in retail, where a company will always want to put their shelf talkers on and their own mass produced things. And I write my own hand notes, and I bring that into social media. It's usually my own content. And that was one of the things I also wanted to follow up. And you mentioned briefly social media. And I know in the book, you didn't really mention social media much. I know you're on social media. What are your thoughts on sales and social media and like these big influences now? Do you think people should get away from getting into that white noise or try to tackle that?
So I will tell you, I love this stuff, by the way, just, thanks for having me yet again. I love talking about this stuff. I'll do it 8 days a week, twice on Sunday. But as far as the value I get from doing it, is practicing my chops of talking about it. I hope somebody out there will buy the book. I really do. I think it'll benefit from it, but it's not why I do it. It's not why I'm, social media, my social media presence is really about content that I have to be present. I have to be out there. So if somebody goes to find me, some event manager that is thinking about booking me for a speaking engagement, they have to be able to find me and see what I've done. We post all the interviews. We post unfortunately the lighting at Berkeley was not great. So, but we did find one little snippet that will work, and that's what we'll fly with, and we'll dress it up around it, and that'll get a lot of buzz. Two paths to go down here. When you're in business to business, it's one set of rules in my view. And that is you should follow the positive activity process. That doesn't mean turn a blind eye to social media and email marketing. There's certainly touches. But think about it. What business person are you sharing your personal Facebook account with? I don't. We're going to start doing more things with using video of us doing things. Like Lori's starting to do a lot more with products. I want to do a lot more with interviews. When I have a great server, I want to interview them on the spot. And I want to post it. I want to tell the world about it. There's a positive gig. I don't anticipate that's going to turn into 4 zillion book sales. But I think if somebody's looking for a speaker and we're talking eating my own dog food, as they say, I think that's a good thing to do. So now the other side, that whole influencer thing, sorry, I don't know anything about it. I got whoa. It's almost like even when I was in the sporting goods business and we'd have a spokesperson. I didn't represent big companies, but we had Akeem Olajuwon as one of our guys that wore our shoes. And it didn't equate to any shoes. Things can become phenomenons. I'll give you a phenomenon that came off of TikTok. Who's got a Stanley tumbler? Which one of you?
Yeah.
Not
I
me.
don't, but it was a big trend for sure.
Big. That was all about TikTok. And then they had a little caddy that goes on it where you can put your keys and whatnot. That's the next thing that went crazy. And in our swag business, we took advantage of that, but we also told our customers, sure, you can spend the $50 on the Stanley, but I get the same product at $15. Your decision. And so we can cleanse, again, sitting there in my seat. How would I want to be treated? I'd rather have the option to buy the $15 one but 9 times out of 10, they want the brand, but we know we did the right thing. So that's kind of my thing. I'm not an expert on social media. And here's the other thing. We talk about where we are tech-wise and, email and social media marketing and blah, blah, blah. Here's one for you. Listeners out there, direct mail in 2023 was up. And it's not cheap anymore. It's not as cheap as it once was.
Yeah, it's coming back.
We've never left it. We send customers stuff every month, at least every month. Top ones, as we get down to the B's, C, D's, they might not get as often, but we segment the accounts in that fashion. But yeah, and people can't wait to get the stuff. We do a calendar where their name is in it. Who would have thunk a calendar in today's day and age of a digital calendar? All of our digital calendars would move the needle. They can't wait to get these things. And it's
good to know that you're still thinking of them, right? I mean, it's good to know you're still thinking of them, and it gets them to think, oh, Neil, yeah, wow, he sends me this calendar every year. This is great, right?
Yeah, and it's a creative thought, and their names in it. It's Dale Carnegie says the greatest sound a person hears is their name. So put it on a mug, put it on a calendar. It's a great thing to do. So think about the effect that has. Somebody sitting in an office or sitting at home. We make sure we get everybody's home address because of their working from home. They're sitting working from home with no camaraderie except for the dog, and a package shows up and there's a mug that's got the tumbler that's got their name on it with my logo. That's a pretty good gig. That gets attention.
Yeah.
And they get noticed. That's our gig. We think that emails, and we do emails, we do social media, but we're doing only videos now of us in the videos. And my wife is way better looking than me. So she does right now. She's doing most of it. That's very effective. We get a lot of buzz from that. It's just another touch. It doesn't necessarily, oh, I saw you carrying that tumbler that day. Can I have 400 of them? No, it's usually, oh, you just reminded me to call you guys because I'm looking for t-shirts.
Yeah.
So it's touched marketing. All goes back to Jay Levinson and guerrilla marketing.
We didn't really. Our listeners probably say, "Where's all the wine talk today?" But
No.
I know our listeners who are in the wine business or in retail or something will take a lot of these tips, and I hope they go out and buy your book, Neil, BarTips. And I want to thank you for joining us. It was great.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Thanks for the expertise.
Glad to give it.
Thank you for listening to us today on The Wonderful World of Wine. We have been your hosts, Mark Lenzi and Kim Simone. You can find our past episodes on SoundCloud and iTunes. We are on Facebook at The Wonderful World of Wine and supported by Franklin Public Radio. Our guest today has been Neil Rogers, and you can find his book, which is called BarTips. Everything I needed to know in sales, I learned behind the bar. Cheers.
Cheers.
Why?